very good morning to all of you. Today, I, Dr. Suman Bhatia, Associate Professor working at the CSE Department, Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College, Ghaziabad. So, today we are going to start with the topic deadlock under the subject operating system with the subject code KCS 401. So, the topics which are covered under this unit are system model, deadlock characterization, methods for handling deadlocks, deadlock prevention, avoidance, detection, and how to recover from the deadlock. So, to start with, as a first lecture of this topic, we will be able to cover only the highlighted topics. So, objectives are to develop a description of deadlocks which prevent set of concurrent processes from completing their task, and to present a number of different methods for preventing or avoiding deadlocks in a computer system. So, this is one of the real-time example of a deadlock where two vehicles are coming from the opposite side on a bridge, and unless and until one goes back, both won't be able to cross the bridge. So that is one of the real-time example of deadlock, one of the real-time scenario, and it has also been illustrated by the law passed by Kansas legislature in early 20th century, which mentioned that when two train approaches each other at a crossing, both shall come to a full stop and neither shall start up again until the other has gone. So what is the resource? The resource is the crossing. And what are the different processes? Two train are the different processes. So we are also going to relate in the upcoming slides how this occurs in a computer system. So how can we define the deadlock? In a multi-programming environment, there are several processes which may compete for several resources. A process would make a request for the resource. If the resources are not available at that time, the process would enter into the waiting state. And sometimes this waiting state would never again be able to change state to the executing state. Why? Why it would happen? Because these resources that is requested by the process are being held by the other waiting processes. And I have mentioned that they are being held by the other waiting processes. Means the processes which are also waiting, which are held holding the resources, are also waiting for some of the processes. So this kind of a scenario is termed as a deadlock. So as you can see, the pictorial representation of a deadlock in system, there are two processes, two resources. Process 1 is waiting for the resource 2, which has already been assigned to the process 2, and process 2 in turn is waiting for the resource 1, which has already been assigned to the process 1. So what happens in this scenario? Process 1 waiting for the resource being held by process 2, and process 2 waiting for the resource being held by the process 1. So both of them are not able to execute. So this is a deadlock scenario. And whenever we understand how this deadlock characterization occurs, what is the pictorial representation for representing these deadlock scenarios where there are number of processes and resources. First of all, we need to understand in terms of the system model. What is a system model? It comprises of resources, and these resource types may be R1, R2 through Rm. And what these resources may be? These may be some CPU cycles, memory space, or IO devices. And each and every resource may have some instances. What do you understand by the term instances? It means, say for example, I say there are two printers connecting to one computer system. So I would say there are two instances for that particular printer. And every process is going to utilize the resource in the following manner. There are three phases. First of all, it would make a request for the resource. Then, if that resource has been allocated to the process, it will make use of that resource. And later on, after the execution has been done with the help of that resource, process is supposed to release that resource. Because unless and until process release the allocated resource, that particular resource won't be available, it won't be possible for the system to make those resources available to the other processes which are already in wait for that resource. So there are different system calls for request and release of device, open and close file, allocate and free memory. And apart from the resources which are being managed by the operating system, the resources which are being made available through the application based resources are they can be accomplished through wait and signal operations on semaphores, and we can say or they can be made available through acquisition and release of mutex logs. So we have mentioned both the binary and counting semaphore usage for making use of how system calls with the help of which we can make available the resources to the different processes. And there is a system table record which maintains whether a resource is free or allocated, and each resource which is allocated, that information would be maintained in the table. And how this information would be maintained, that to which process that particular resource has been allocated. And if a particular process is making a request for the resource but that is not available, means that is currently allocated to some another process P2, so what we can do, that we can add that process to a queue of processes waiting for that particular resource. As we have already started while we were covering the topic CPU scheduling, we discussed this thing that there are different queues, and so we can add that process into a particular device queue or particular resource queue for which the process is waiting for. So when we will say that the process is in a deadlocked state, a set of processes is said to be deadlocked when every process in the set, but we are saying that when every process in the set is waiting for a resource which is currently allocated to the another process in the set, and that can be released when that other waiting process make progress. What does it mean? Means the waiting process has also got the resources that it requires, and after it has executed, it has released all the required resources so that it can be made available to the other waiting processes. So if that is the scenario when all the set of processes are waiting for the resources being held by the other processes in the set, so we will say that all those processes are in the deadlock state. And what can be these resources for which the processes may wait for? These may be either physical resources or some other resources. For example, physical resources, we can have printer, tape drivers, memory space, CPU cycles, and other resources like we have files, semaphores, and monitors. So now we have discussed about the definition of a deadlock. We mentioned that when a process would be in deadlock state. So what happens when the process goes into the deadlock state? That is a very important question. So in case of a deadlock state, the processes would never be able to finish their execution, and the system resources would also be tied up. Why? Because one process is waiting for the resource for completing the execution and at the same time holding the other resources. So the two things are being affected. Number one, the process execution execution not being done, and at the same time resources are unnecessarily being held by the processes. So underutilization of resources is there, and we are not able to proceed ahead with the processes execution. So now the question is, we have discussed about the definition of a deadlock. We have discussed what happens to the processes when they occur when they get into the deadlock state. But what are the conditions with the help of which we can say that yes, this is the deadlock? There are 4 conditions. If these occur simultaneously, we will say that the deadlock has occurred. The number 1 is mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, circular wait. Now we are going to discuss all these 4 conditions one by one. Mutual exclusion, only one process at a time can use the resource for execution. Fine. So we can say if we have a file which can be used by a number of processes. But if we impose mutual exclusion condition on the file usage as a resource, so that file would be utilized only by one process at a time. The next is hold at wait. It means a process would keep on holding at least one resource, and at the same time it is waiting for the other resources which are being held by the other processes. And the no preemption means unless and until the process completes the task, it won't release the resources. So it says a process can be released only voluntarily by the process holding it after the process has completed its task. So unless and until the process completed its task, it is not going to release the resources. The last one is circular wait. That is very important, because in the upcoming slides, with the help of resource allocation graph, with the circular wait, we will be able to identify whether the deadlock is there or not. And there are certain conditions that we will discuss in the upcoming slides. So circular wait, there exists a set of processes P through to Pn minus 1, and where what is the waiting sequence? P0 is waiting for the resource which is being held by the process P1. P1 is waiting for the resource which is being held by the process P2. And Pn minus 1 is further waiting for the resource which is being held by the P node. So there is a circular wait which starts from P0, then Pn minus 1, and then P node. I'll make a correction over here. So this is the circular wait. Fine. One process is waiting for the resource which is being held by the another. So how would we come to know whether the circular wait is there or not? We have a representation in the form of a resource allocation graph, with the help of which we will be able to identify whether the circular wait is there in the graph or not. So what does the resource allocation graph comprises of? It comprises of a set of vertices and set of edges. Vertices, these may be the processes or resources. And how many processes may be there? There may be n processes and m resources. Fine. Further, each and every resource may have different instance types that we will take up later on with the help of diagrammatic representation. So process, the set comprising of processes in the system, resources, all the resources which are there in the system, and edges, the edges may be request edge or assignment edge. Request edge is what? When the arrow is from process Pi to Rj, where I is from 1 to n or 0 to n minus 1. That is totally dependent upon how you want to represent. But the total processes should be n and the resources should be m. So either you can represent the processes from 1 to n or 0 through n minus 1, and resources from 1 through m or 0 through m minus 1. That is totally dependent upon how you want to represent, but the total number of should be n and m respectively for the processes and resources. Assignment edge means the resource has been assigned to a process. So there would be a directed edge from the resource to the process, resource Rj to process Pi. So how we are going to represent process in the resource allocation graph? Process means a circular representation, a circular node, or we can say it is a vertices in the resource allocation graph. And if you remember in the earlier slides, I have mentioned a particular resource may have a number of instances. So how we are going to represent that? So resource would be represented by a rectangular box with further small rectangles. And how many small rectangles would be there? And it equivalent to the number of instances. And Pi, and how would I represent the request edge? It would be from circular to rectangle. Circular is representing the process and rectangular is representing the resource. And if Pi is holding an instance of Rj, it means there is an assignment edge, and the arrow would be from resource to the process, as we have already discussed in the previous slide. So this is one example of a resource allocation graph. If you observe it carefully, so there are a total of 3 processes. What are those processes? P1, P2 and P3. And how many resources are there? There are total of 4 resources, R1, R2, R3 and R4. Now, what was the next thing? We need to identify the instances. For R1, there is a 1 instance. R2, there are 2 instances. Since how many dots are there? There are 2 dots for the resource R2. For R3, there is a single dot, and for R4, there are 3 dots representing the instances of the resources. If you go through the previous slide, so both are the correct representations, and you will come across both the representation in different online and different book representations, whether you follow the Tenenbaum Galvin book. So this is the representation which has been taken from the Galvin book, standard textbook for the operating system. So R4 is having 3 instances. Now we need to identify which is the request and which is the assignment edge. Request is when there is a arrow from process to resource. So request edges are P1 to R1. The next one is we have P2 to R3, that is also request edge. And if we talk about the assignment edges, we have from R1 to P2 means R1 resources held by the process P2. The next one is R3 is also being held by the process P3. Fine. So another 2 assignment edges are R2 to P1 and R2 to P2. So this was all about this resource allocation graph. Now we are moving towards the next step. And what is the next step? With the help of this resource allocation graph, we will be identifying whether there is a cycle, whether there is a deadlock state or not. So how would we identify? There are 2 ways, there are 2 subconditions to check whether the deadlock is there or not. Fine. If there is no cycle in this resource allocation graph, we will also discuss how to identify whether there is a cycle or not. We will be covering those examples as well. So if there is a circular weight in the resource allocation graph, deadlock existence would depend whether each resource is having single instance or multiple instances. If each resource has exactly, I'm taking the second condition first, then we'll switch to the first condition. If each resource has exactly 1 instance, a cycle implies that the deadlock has occurred, and each process involved in the cycle would call to be in the deadlock state. Fine. And in this scenario, we will say that cycle in the graph is both a necessary and sufficient condition for the existence of deadlock. But if each resource type has several instances, a cycle does not necessarily imply that a deadlock has occurred. Fine. So a cycle in the graph is a necessary but not sufficient condition for the deadlock to occur. In that scenario, deadlock may or may not occur. We will discuss certain examples corresponding to this in the upcoming slide. And if there is no cycle in the graph, it means the process is not in the deadlock state. Now, this is a resource allocation graph and it is with a deadlock. The next one is a graph with a cycle but not deadlock. So now let us discuss the first part. So there are total of 4 resources again. There are total of 3 processes, P1, P2 and P3. Sorry. Now, if you see, there is a cycle in the graph. P1 is allocated to R1, R1 being held by P2. P1 is making a request for the resource R1, R1 allocated to the P2, P2 making a request for R3, R3 allocated to P3, P3 making a request for R2 and which is further allocated to the process P2 and at the same time it is allocated to the process P1. So there are total of 3 processes out P1, P2, P3 out of which R2 2 instances have been allocated to the process P1 and P2. And the next condition is where P3 is also making a request for the resource R2 And if we see this graph carefully, there is no process amongst P1, P2 and P3 with the help of which we will be able to break this cycle. So the deadlock is there. The next is graph has cycle, but there is no deadlock. If we, there are two resources R1 and R2. There are total of 4 processes P1, P2, P3 and P4. P1 requesting the resource R1, which is further allocated to the P2, and the second instance of R1 is also allocated to the process P3, and the next is P3 is making a request for R2, which is further allocated to P1, whose 2 instances are further allocated to P1 and the P4. But here there is no deadlock. How? Because P4 is not dependent on any other resource. It is not waiting for any other resource. As soon as P4 completes its execution, it will free up the resource R2, which can then be further allocated to the process P3. Hence, it would be possible to break the cycle, and hence in this graph we can say that there is no deadlock. Now, so just a summary of deadlock is existence. As we have already mentioned, if the graph contains no cycle means no deadlock, but if contains a cycle, if only one instance per resource type, then deadlock, and if there are several instances per resource type, there is a possibility of deadlock. We can't say that yes, for sure the deadlock would occur. That is totally dependent upon how many instances of resources are there. So now we discussed about deadlock, we discussed about what are the conditions for deadlock to occur, we discussed about how we will identify whether the deadlock is there or not. Now we should also be able to understand the different methods for handling deadlock. So there are 3 main methods. One is deadlock prevention, avoidance, and then deadlock detection and recovery. And the fourth one says simply ignore the problem and let the system pretend that the deadlock never occurred in the system. So deadlock prevention, what we will do under this condition, we are going to create such a scenario in which we will be able to prevent any of those conditions which were responsible for the occurrence of deadlock. And what were those conditions? Number 1, it was mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait. If we are able to falsify those conditions, then we will be able to handle the deadlock. Fine. So we will discuss in detail in the upcoming lecture how we would be able to prevent the deadlock. And the next one is deadlock avoidance. So in this case, I am just giving a brief overview over here, but we will cover in detail in the upcoming lectures. We will allocate the resources to the different processes in such a manner that we will be able to avoid, the system would be able to avoid the deadlock. But for that, well in advance information should be there that how many resources would be required by the process for completing their execution. And the last one is deadlock detection and recovery. You need to detect whether the deadlock is there or not and then recover from the deadlock. Fine. So deadlock avoidance, we will be covering Banker's algorithm in the upcoming lectures. And for deadlock detection and recovery, we also have separate algorithms for the same. So for all the topics that we have covered so far, the possible questions that can be asked are define deadlock, give real-time examples of deadlock, what are the different conditions for deadlock to occur, and given a resource allocation graph, can we identify whether the system is in deadlocked state or not? For sure, as we have already covered 2 examples in the slides, we can definitely complete this question. And we need to list down the different methods for handling deadlock, because as of now, we have not covered in details how these methods work, but we can definitely list down at least those methods: avoidance, prevention, and deadlock detection and recovery. So this was all about today's lecture, where we have covered the definition of deadlock, real-time example of deadlock, system model, which is based on request, use and release of resources, deadlock characterization, what is resource allocation graph, and what are the different methods for handling deadlock. And in the upcoming lecture, we will be discussing about the different deadlock prevention method and introduction to the deadlock avoidance. So this was all about today's lecture. Thank you all.